A brick is just a brick. Or is it? What creative use could you find for a brick other than the obvious? We had a brainstorming session at work where a group of us was asked that very question. And we had close to 100 innovative uses. But hands down, the most innovative use came from one of our Bosnian colleagues who suggested using the brick to depress the gas pedal so that you could sleep while your car was still running. It makes one wonder what a harrowing experience it must be to drive in Bosnia. I suppose we could use more commonplace uses for it, like a doorstop, paperweight, or leveling uneven furniture. But sometimes a brick is used, well, as a brick. This is such a brick. My wife Gail recently purchased this for $18.63. Can you imagine $18.63 for this? It isn't even perfectly rectangular. When she told me of this purchase, immediately another unique use for it came out. But when she told me that all the proceeds went to historical preservation, I regained my composure. Yet this brick has an interesting story to tell us. What is that story? Was it part of a walkway, part of a building? What did it see that it could share with us? It has already given us a clue, and since you're all Toastmasters, I'm sure you're well on your way to deciphering what this is. But let's see what it has to say. Once upon a time, there was a land founded on the highest of principles. Its citizens lived peacefully and prospered for many years. Then, about the time when this country would have reached its adolescence, there were some disagreements over the direction the country was taking. Eventually, these disagreements led to armed conflict. Initially, the conflict was rather small and scattered throughout the land. Eventually, no one and no place seemed to escape the horrors of this conflict. One of those places was where this brick came from. It was a peaceful town nestled in beautiful country beyond the Purple Mountains' majesty. It was like most small towns of that era. Through no fault of its own, this conflict had come to the heart of this town. In a very short period of time, this brick saw a complete range of human emotions, such as misery, bravery, cowardice, and eventually catharsis. This brick was part of a house owned by a prominent lawyer who did his best to heal the wounds that this town suffered and to honor those who struggled there. This brick also witnessed a reluctant traveler who stayed at that house. This traveler did not wish to visit this town as he was concerned about the health of his child, but he felt it his duty to attend. This brick witnessed this reluctant traveler alone in his room. Under the dimming lights of oil lamps, this brick witnessed this traveler taking two small pieces of paper from his coat pocket and setting them on a table. The brick saw this traveler put his spectacles on, take a pen, and make a few notes on these papers. Periodically, the traveler would remove his spectacles, rub his eyes as if deep in thought, put the spectacles back on, and write a few more notes. It was obvious that this traveler seemed to have the weight of the world upon his shoulders. The next morning, this traveler left the house and traveled to a hill on the south of town, where he performed his duty. Shortly thereafter, he left that charming town, never to return. He left feeling very melancholy because he was convinced that his short stay there was a complete and total failure. However, nothing could have been further from the truth. For you see, this brick witnessed something truly remarkable. Just before that reluctant traveler turned out those oil lamps to retire for the evening, this brick peered over his shoulder and read the first sentence that was written on those two small pieces of paper. And that sentence read, 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men created equal. Yes, fellow Toastmasters, this brick was part of the wall from the David Wills house, which still stands in that charming town of Gettysburg. And it was in this house on the evening of November 18th where that reluctant traveler, President Lincoln, found the right words to put this struggle into perspective. The year was 1863, which just happened to be exactly the price that Gail paid for the brick. Fellow Toastmasters, depending upon your paradigm, a brick can be just a brick, small part of a wall, or it could be so much more. It can be the building block in the walls of our heritage, silent, standing witnesses to the events that have shaped our history, provided we have the foresight and the will to preserve them. What stories will today's walls tell future generations? What significant events will today's bricks bear witness to? One theme that I hope that will be as resonant in the future as it was on that November night so long ago could be expressed by the final words this brick witnessed before that reluctant traveler retired for the evening. That this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Mr. Toastmaster.